July. He agreed that absolute priority should be given to infantry, without supporting arms, trained or untrained, just men. Britain would find the shipping. 56% of these men were carried in British ships. A blood transfusion on a scale never dreamt of now began. Pershing gained 1 point. The Americans were, after all, fighting in divisions under their own command. And while the Allied leaders wrangled, American soldiers entered their grimmest experience so far. On June the 6th, the American 2nd Division, half of it Marines, attacked at Belleau Wood.
We got into the edge of the woods, and we dug in, and we took position there. But the difficulty with Belleau Wood was you never knew where the front was. Little groups of men, of Americans, little groups of Germans got together to fight each other. And while you were fighting in one direction, all of a sudden, without any warning, you would find that there were some Germans to the rear of you, and they had to be mopped up. Clean up, mop up, and move ahead, move ahead.
In open order and in mass, the Americans lost heavily at Belleau Wood, but they were not to be denied. As their first wounded came back, khaki figures among the blue of the Frenchmen, a French nurse said to one of them, "Surely you're an American." He replied, "No, ma'am, I'm a Marine." There were 3 American divisions in battle now, and infinite promise behind them. But still it was German plans which would decide where and how the next battle would be fought. It was not an easy decision. A German commander wrote,
"Our casualties were increasing alarmingly. Ammunition was running short, and the problem of supply became more and more difficult. It became all too clear that action so stubbornly contested would never enable us to capture Paris. In truth, the brilliant offensive had petered out."
What should the Germans do? Ludendorff, planner and organizer of their great offensives, was in a cruel dilemma. His main intention was still to attack the British front, but meanwhile there was the temptation of repeating a crushing blow against the French army. Ludendorff became entangled in his own web. He temporized. The temptation was too strong. He decided to attack the French again. The first day's advance, on June the 9th, was 6 miles deep, and the Germans took 8,000 prisoners. The next day, they advanced another 2 miles. And then stopped. On June the 11th, the French struck back. Two American divisions formed the spearhead of their attack, supported by nearly 150 tanks and by low-flying aircraft.
No flags, no bright swords, no lines of battle charging with a yell. Combat groups of weary men in drab and dirty uniforms, dressed approximately on a line, spaced so that one shrapnel burst cannot include more than one group. Laden like mules with gas masks, bandoliers, grenades, trudging forward without haste and without excitement, they moved on an untidy wood where shells were breaking. A wood that did not answer back or show an enemy.
The French attack did not go far, but it did its work. The Germans were halted, and Ludendorff surveyed the results of another precious month that had gone by without producing victory.
At the moment, there might be 20 American divisions in France in all, more than I had believed possible. And not only had our march superiority in the numbers of divisions been cancelled, but even the difference in gross numbers was now to our disadvantage. It was for this reason that America became the deciding factor in the war.
Now, once again, there was a brief period of calm on the Western Front. Fighting died down into local actions. Everywhere, commanders and soldiers drew breath and took stock of their position. Like a ripple across the calm, or a breath of fresh wind, an idea stirred among the Allied leaders. General Foch recorded,
"I did not lose sight of the offensive task for which the Allied armies must at once get ready, and which ought to be undertaken as soon as possible, since it was only by offensive action that they could bring the war to a victorious conclusion."
On June the 28th, Foch met Haig, who wrote in his diary,
I told Foch of 2 small offensive projects which I contemplated carrying out, if the military situation allowed. He was pleased at my holding offensive intentions at the present time.
The British Army had profited by its period of rest. Spirits had revived. The ranks were filling. "Our troops are really wonderful," Haig commented. One part of his army had never accepted defeat in any form or submitted to enemy initiative. On April the 25th, the 3rd anniversary of Anzac Day, the Australians had counterattacked at Villers-Bretonneux, Villers-Bret, marking the high water line of the German advance towards Amiens. All through May and June, the Australian front was fluid and active. It was the Australians whom Haig had designated for one of his offensive projects now, at Le Hamel, another example of what they themselves called peaceful penetration. And with the Australians, there would be men of the American 33rd Division. Haig had a high opinion of the Americans, who had paraded for his inspection only a few days before.
I was much impressed. They're a fine body of men, keen, active, and athletic looking.
The date selected for the Le Hamel project was appropriate. July the 4th, Independence Day. But at the last moment, there was an unexpected snag.